the Russian invasion of Ukraine continues unabated. Here's a look at how Russia is advancing in Ukraine. Russian forces say they have struck a site in western Ukraine. This site allegedly stole a large number of weapons supplied by the United States and European countries. This comes as the battle intensifies in Severodonetsk. The strike has been conducted on Top Kyiv, a relatively calm town located in west of Ukraine. The incident has left 22 people injured. Meanwhile, as the war rages on, dead bodies are piling up. Reports suggest that on an average 600 to 1,000 Ukrainians are dying every day. An extraordinary loss of human life is being witnessed. More than 20,000 people have lost their lives in the span of 1 month. This poses questions. How will you create an army fight if the war drags on? The war-torn country's forces are still fighting on the front line. However, sooner or later, the rising number of casualties is likely to erode its strength. A pro-Russian leader in eastern Ukraine has said that he would not alter the death sentences. 100 to 2 Britons and a Moroccan. These 3 individuals are fighting with the Ukrainian army. The leader of the Donetsk region said they came to Ukraine to kill civilians for money. That is why I don't see any conditions for any mitigation or modification of the sentence. He also said that the court had issued a perfectly fair punishment to the 3 fighters. Meanwhile, Kremlin marked Russia Day. Russian President Vladimir Putin presented state awards in the Kremlin. These awards were given to walk us across fields of culture, art, science and technology. Put in 100 that styled a hero of labor honor to a film director and a conductor. Ghostly is worse when you call in workers do a sweep, which was Bill Lucier, who has read New Yorker or Darun. Excruciatingly deluvia you as Karina periodontist sway module washability issue decision at Premier Vietnam preserver in your garage dance como duya, as well as escalation to me this privilege in your gadgets of Sisterta at CDC insurance portfolio was supposed to come in Agra de Moroni Israel. Assembled. The situation in Severodonetsk remains tense. Russians destroyed a second bridge in the city. The cities of Severodonetsk and Lysychansk are separated by a river. These cities have been under Russian attacks for weeks now. While the war rages on in Ukraine and dead bodies are piling up, reports suggest that on an average 600 to 1,000 Ukrainians are dying every day. An extraordinary loss of human life is being witnessed. More than 20,000 people have lost their lives in the span of 1 month. This poses questions. How will Ukrainian army fight if the war drags on? The war-torn country's forces are still fighting on the front line. However, sooner or later the rising number of casualties is likely to erode its strength. By joining us for more on the situation in Ukraine is the former Minister of Infrastructure of Ukraine Volodymyr Emelian. Mr. Emelian, welcome to We are receiving reports that there has been a rocket attack in the west of Ukraine. This is considered as very rare. What does this say about Russia's advances in Ukraine? Mr. Emelian, can you hear me? Yes, I can very well. Thank you very much for joining us on We are receiving reports that there has been a rocket attack in the west of Ukraine. This is considered as very rare. What does this say about of Russia as advances in Ukraine? There is no advance at all. But definitely Russia is trying to capture Ukraine because they would like to move farther west to Poland, Baltic states and maybe into the middle of Europe. But our forces are fighting strongly and Russia is not progressing. So they are only happy with occupying some territory in the eastern Ukraine, and some piece of territory in the south and Ukraine where I actually am stationing right now with my battalion. We do believe that this is the end of Russian Empire, whatever Mr. Putin says, and dreams about restoring Soviet Union or Russian Empire, but there is no chance to make it happen. Because in 21st century, you cannot occupy other territories, you cannot kill people in 1,000s, hundreds and hundreds 1,000s. And if you do so you become a terrorist and criminal. Let me ask this: more than 20,000 people have lost their lives in the span of 1 month. Most are Ukrainians, despite President Zelensky saying that Ukraine will prevail in the war. How long can this continue when the war is taking a huge toll? There is only one finish for us: we should win, because otherwise, we are all dead. Putin said that there is no Ukraine. There are no Ukrainians, and he would like to destroy our country as a whole. So there is not many options for us left. So we should fight and we should win and we will win. Finally, Mr. Millian, as a former minister and government official, what do you think will be the best viable way for Ukraine to resuscitate or even revive exports, and avoid a food crisis, even with signs that the conflict may not end soon? To stop poaching. And this is a big issue for all civilized world. And I believe such a great country as India would not like to be ruled by China or Russia. And it's actually a dream of China and Russia to rule the world. I believe that destiny of each country should be concentrated in the nation of this country. And we have to choose who we would like to be. Right now, there is no food crisis. It's actually artificially done by Russia because they lose in war. There is no much progress for them to sell oil and gas. So they would like now to shift the attention of the world to the food problem. But there is only one problem. It's Russia itself. Alright, I've been talking to the former Minister of Infrastructure of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zyulyny. Thank you very much for making time and for talking to me on today. We Only is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the moon.
In the capital, Kiev, here's our international correspondent, Oleg Garin.
The rush to Kiev, a capital under attack. As we headed for the city this morning, there was little moving, apart from Ukrainian troops. But the Russians are watching from the skies, ready to strike, as they did here, just an hour outside the capital. Well, this is what we've come across on the road to Kiev. This convoy was obviously travelling to the city to be part of the defence of Kiev. This is an air defence missile system. It was hit yesterday. The smoke is still rising here. And here too, after an early morning strike on a block of flats near Kiev's Zhuliany airport. The authorities here say it was a Russian missile strike that killed 2 people. It could have been many more, but plenty of locals had fled or taken cover in shelters. Yuri Shevchuk, who lives nearby, says the West must help Ukraine.
I wanted to say for you, for your governments, because that we are in need, urgently in need, as soon as possible, as much as possible. We are in need anti-aircraft missiles, we are in need anti-tank missiles, we need ammunition.
Is there any message that you would wish to send to President Putin?
I wanted to say to President Putin that only one way for him, it's way to hell.
Well, this is what Kiev woke up to this morning. All of this destruction is in a residential area in a European city. And there is a real sense here now that nowhere in the capital is safe. And so much of Kiev now looks like this, still standing, but bracing for impact.
Всім доброго ранку, українці.
Ukraine's embattled president, Volodymyr Zelensky, took to the deserted streets, shooting a selfie video to reassure his people.
Значить так, я тут.
I am here, he said, and we will not lay down our arms. Far from it, we found Ukrainians taking up arms, forming volunteer brigades to defend the city alongside the local police.
Я не хочу жить, и многие мои побратимы не хотят жить в России.
This volunteer, who goes by the nickname Moloy, said, I don't want to live in Russia, and my brothers in arms don't want that either. We will defend this city, or I will die. The volunteers are looking for Russian saboteurs, said to be already in the city. Nearby, we met Nino, out walking her dog and venting her fury. We demand an end to the war, she says. We can do it with sanctions. We must isolate the aggressor country. It terrorizes the whole world. With Russian forces at the gates, some are still fleeing the capital. For now, the city remains in Ukrainian hands, but the battle may be just beginning. Orla Guerin, BBC News, Kyiv.
Well, this evening, in a major shift in policy, Chancellor Olaf Scholz says Germany will deliver weapons to Ukraine. These are set to include 1,000 anti-tank weapons and 500 Stinger surface-to-air missiles. The government in Berlin has also indicated it could now back plans to cut Russia off from the SWIFT international payment system. Our Europe editor, Katya Adler, joins us from Brussels. Katya, how significant are these announcements?
Oh, it is really, really significant. I mean, we heard from the German Chancellor himself. He called this a watershed moment. You know, Germany traditionally, because of its role in the Second World War, has been very wary about getting involved in military conflict. But this aggression by Russia on Ukraine has put the German government under real pressure at home and also abroad from other Western allies. So Germany will not only be sending weapons directly to Ukraine itself, but it's also lifted some restrictions on German-made weapons owned by other countries, and so they can help Ukraine as well, like, for example, the Netherlands or the Baltic states, who have been waiting as well. And as you mentioned, I mean, Germany had been very opposed to rejecting Russia from SWIFT. That's that global financial transaction network. But today, ministers said they were working on a way of how they could remove Russia in a targeted way. That, of course, is a move that is supported by the UK, the US and other member states as well. I think what we're seeing here is, you know, Germany, the EU as a whole, it's not exactly famed for very quick decision making. But what we're seeing right now in Ukraine is changing all of that. The EU right now is working on its third sanction package in a week. Whichever country I call, prime ministers or the president in the case of France, are talking all the time to other leaders in the EU, to the UK, to Joe Biden in the US as well. Tomorrow, EU foreign ministers meet and they'll talk about coordinating military action. And we're about to hear from the EU Commission Chief, Ursula von der Leyen, about action tonight. That will be any minute now.
Katya, for the moment, thank you very much.